I've been streamer fishing now for a very long time, and I'm going to show you and talk to you about some tips that'll help with your streamer game. I had to figure this out on my own, so I'm going to take about 10 years off your learning curve with some of these tips that nobody seems to ever teach. So let's start with the first tip. The first tip is speed matters more than the fly. You want to vary up your retrieve, and sometimes it might be slower than you think. Often fish will take a streamer when you stop and it starts to sink. As soon as you start going again, bam, they hit it. Often that triggers that predatory instinct in the fish and they grab it as soon as it stops and start to swim away. Number two, change direction. And what I mean by that is that sometimes you're going to cast upstream. Sometimes you're going to cast across and bring it back. Sometimes you're going to cast 45 degrees down and strip it back. Sometimes you're going to just let it swing. Erratic behavior imitates a vulnerable fish. Do a lot of different things. Don't do just one thing when fishing streamers. You're just pulling it back 6 to 8 inches, kind of the same cadence. You might catch a few fish, but you're going to catch a lot more if you're doing a lot of erratic behavior with your stripping line. Next, tippet size matters. Now, it doesn't really matter to the fish because they're going after a big streamer. They're not leader shy. They can care less if they see the line, right? They're looking at that bait fish and they are chasing after it. I would not use anything less than 3X. 3X, 2X, 1X, 0X are just fine for streamer fishing, even in clear water conditions. If you are snapping your streamer off in the back cast right now, that's because your leader is too light and it can't handle the weight of that streamer being cast over and over and over, and you're going to lose that streamer on the back cast if you're using 4X or lighter. So go 3X and heavier when fishing streamers. Now you could also fish them with 9-foot tapered leaders, and if you're on a sink tip, you want to shorten that up. It just increases the hookup percentage when you're on a sink tip to go to about 4 feet in length. If you're using regular fly line that floats, do a tapered leader. 9 to 12 feet are just fine. If you need to get down a little bit deeper, buy a weighted streamer, right? A lot of times I will use weighted streamers over sink tips or sinking lines just because sink tips and sinking lines are tough to catch. And that leads me to depth is everything, right? A lot of times fish are not eating streamers up on top of the water column. Sometimes they do, but more often that fish is hunkered down behind a rock in a seam in kind of a area that they can ambush their prey, right? Under a log, next to a log, under a rock, over, not literally under, but over to the side of a rock, in front, back. You want to make sure that your streamer gets down into the strike zone. So whether you're doing that with weight, depending how deep the fishery is, or if you're doing that with a sink tip, it is important to get that streamer down. And then parallel to that, right, look for structure. Fish want to hide. They're not just going to be out in the open. Sometimes they are, but most of the time, they're next to that log. They're next to that rock. They're under a tree. They're pushed up against the bank. Right there, they want to feel safe. And when they see that darting bait fish go by your streamer, they're going to come out and grab it if it's down in the zone and you're making it that panic strip. You're making the fish feel like that bait fish is in distress and I need to go eat them. This is a big one, right? And it took me a while to learn this, and I still occasionally make this mistake. You want to strip set, right? It's super important not to trout set. A lot of times that'll just pull the streamer right out of the fish's mouth. You want to make sure you feel, right? You're stripping in, you feel them hit. You want to give that a yank and you can feel the fish starting to fight and then lift your rod. A lot of times that happens within the first second, but when you're stripping in, you're stripping, you feel it hit, you want to give it a big strip set and then raise your rod. If you trout set it, a lot of times you'll just pull it out of their mouth and you lose the fish. So strip setting is super important when fishing streamers. The next tip I want to give you is covering the water, right? We talked about this in some of my other videos when I talk about walking the fly out, right? You want to cover all the water. Fish in close first. Sometimes that fish might be on that inside seam. Maybe they're just a little bit further out. Maybe they're against the bank. but start in close and cover the entire section of the water in close first so you don't cast over the fish and scare them, but cover the entire water before moving down. And that's the other thing, right? You want to keep moving. Whether you're in a lake, in a river, keep moving. If you don't catch any fish in that one particular spot, it's time to move after about 15 or 20 minutes. If you're fishing a river, I'm constantly in motion fishing down. I might fish a seam or a really good spot for about 20 minutes, but if I don't catch any fish, I'm headed down. So cover the water and keep moving if you're not catching fish. Prime time for streamer fishing are days just like this. It's overcast. You have a much better chance at catching a fish with a streamer on overcast days. I'm not saying that you can't catch them on sunny days, but sunny days, the fish just feel a little more vulnerable, a little less safe. On cloudy, overcast days, you're probably gonna have a pretty good day when the sun isn't shining down on the water and everything is spooking the fish. When it comes to the streamers that I select, you've probably heard me before, if you've watched my videos, that I fish the Sculptzilla a lot. And part of the reason why I fish the Sculptzilla is because it has a trailing articulated hook. It only has the one hook. I do prefer streamers with one hook, just because two hooks, it can get pretty messy when you catch a fish and trying to unhook it. A lot of times that second hook goes into your finger or goes somewhere else in the fish. But anyway, I use the Sculptzilla because it has that trailing hook, and my hookup percentage is a lot higher because there's not all that marabou and all the feathers behind the hook to where you get a strike, but you miss it because they're nowhere near the hook. Next, and this is super important, right? Confidence really does make a difference. My confidence fly is the Sculptzilla. When I go out and fish with the Sculptzilla, I just know that I'm gonna catch a fish with this fly, right? I've caught so many fish with the Sculptzilla, my confidence is high. And I approach the river that way, right? I'm paying attention. I know at any moment that fish is gonna strike. A lot of times if you're out there and you don't have that confidence, you might get surprised, fish hits it, you're not ready, and you lose the fish. So fish with confidence. Find a couple of flies. Once you have some success with those flies, just know it's gonna happen again. It's gonna happen again. So fish with confidence. That's a real thing in fly fishing. And by the way, if you're finding this video helpful, please consider subscribing to my channel. I upload a ton of content, both inspirational, but lots of educational to help you get better at the sport of fly fishing. And it helps the channel out as well, so thank you. So let's talk about the knots that you use when tying a streamer. Often I'll just use an improved clinch, but if I need a little extra movement, like today I'm steelhead fishing, I have got a Duncan loop on this particular fly. So you want to learn how to tie a loop knot. There are several different types of loop knots that you can tie. I prefer the Duncan loop just because I've been tying it for so long, but it just gives the fly a little extra movement in the water when it's on a loop knot versus straight to the line, especially when you're using heavier tippet like I am today at 16-pound test. All right, well, I hope that helps you the next time you're out fly fishing with streamers. It is a ton of fun. It's way different than anything else. Dry fly fishing, it's a blast. I also like nymphing. Love that bobber going down. But when you feel the fish yank on this streamer, when you're stripping it in and you're fishing it, it's just a direct connection to the fish, and I absolutely love it. All right, if you need a little help with your fly fishing cast, check out this video right here. I promise you, after about 10 minutes, you'll be casting that fly rod a lot better than you are today. All right, everybody, until the next time, fish on.